on silent. You know, teacher thing. We can't have it on.
Oh yeah.
301. I can't believe we made it this far. It'll be super cool if we have people live. We've never had one of those for the class features before.
Hmm.
Just because if they're live people for the class features, then that means I can like collect my thoughts by answering questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so it does look like we are live. No technical hiccups or difficulties, which I like hearing.
Okay.
So far, we have no audience. I don't imagine we will have much of an audience. So let's give
That's
them a
fine.
couple of minutes to get in here if anybody is going to get in here. Hmm. Oh, goodness. So speaking of which, if you get in here and you're hearing this, give us a
Oh
holler in the
shoot,
chat.
we have two people. Look, there are people. They're alive. One of them
That's
is you, though. I think.
that's me and you.
Oh,
Actually, I don't think I
that
count. Oh, okay. We do have one. We have one person.
you're the best person,
Yay!
whoever you are.
Let's hope some more people file in. This was just a sneak.
Scott DM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's just. This was just a sneak attack where we were going to record the show. We had the option of doing it live, so we're doing it live.
yeah, it's fun.
Yep.
Param and I like doing it live.
Yep. All right, we're just gonna give a couple more minutes. Is everything cool? We have all our notes ready. Or no, we don't have no notes.
Listen, the like if we were doing like any of the occult classes, there would be notes everywhere. But like
Oh
the
my
shaman is
gosh.
pretty easy. I'm not even sure. Like I might need to get like a thesis for the kineticist. Like I'm pretty good at designing it now after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and or designing for it, I should say. And even with that, like it's a really tough class to wrap your head around in terms of the itty bitty little math. Because like if you go in and you change like one number in the wrong place, the whole thing falls apart.
Oh wow.
It's scary.
This
Like
is this is why
it's
house rules. I don't respect a lot of house rules being made on the fly by amateur DMs. It's like, hey, I understand that you have ultimate authority in your game, and I want you to make house rules, but you need to understand that the 3.x system is an intricate lattice work of internet connected system and has a core fundamental math assumption. And if you do not understand this, do not make sweeping rule changes that's going to break half the game without even realizing you're
true.
doing it.
It's true. I
Uh,
mean, like, even professionals mess up. Like, there was a post somewhere where, like, a potion of sea invisibility made it into a print product recently. And those can't exist because sea invisibility is a personal spell.
right. Mm-hmm.
So, and it's like one of those little tiny things. Like, I've seen people who are like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to have this cure critical wounds potion. It's like, no, you're not. That's a fourth level spell. Like, it's not a wand. But the rules are, I mean, I know that's something that you're pretty
Yeah,
ardently against.
I want there to be I wish there were more ways of having those higher level potions. I mean, like what?
Yeah,
Only alchemists can pull it off.
not even like their extracts count, but like they count against their spells per day.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
and if you guys are just joining us now, Param and I are just kind of chatting with you guys while we wait for a couple more people to trickle in.
Yep.
Why don't we start at like 9:05? How does that sound,
It
Param?
sounds good. Actually, this intro banter is being bantery enough that we might just include it, or I might just edit it in. Anyway.
Hey, wherever you want to put it is fine with me.
Yeah.
Just make sure you get like cute little goblins going rabbits and chance or whatever.
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about that. Okay, hold on. If we're gonna do a banter, let me get the banter. Let me get that up. But speaking of occult, I had a little panic attack when I was GMing a table for occults, because one of my players. Um, now I like to be prepared, but
Mhm.
even me, I do not know everything about the game. I
No,
wish I did. And you know one rule set I don't know very much about off the top of my head because I don't play with it often?
which one?
Psychic mental combat.
Oh God, they made you do psychic duels.
No, they tried to. And then I was like, oh
No.
crap, how do I do this? I kind of vaguely remember it from when we reviewed that thing a couple of years ago. And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get it. And then one of my other GMs pointed out, you're not allowed to do that in society, right? I'm like, thank you.
Yeah. Society's pretty good at not allowing that stuff. There's also the problem that like instigate psychic duel could accidentally be the most potential shutdown spell imaginable
It is.
because like it draws both of your minds into like a mental scape where you're fighting each other and the other person doesn't get a save to escape like it's the fight. So like it's hold person, but like your opponent is utterly helpless and yeah, they can't break out. So
Which
you
is
can
what
like
they wanted to use it for. They didn't actually care about the duel. They just wanted to CC the target.
yeah. But anyway, I see Scott says he hasn't listened to podcasts in forever because he's moving his stuff around. Well, Scott, we're happy that you could come back to podcast with this podcast.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Scott. If you've got any questions about anything at all, ask them, because you might be holding up the lion's weight of what would usually be our live audience.
I mean, there's like 5 of them now, and I think I might be counted in that number. But
Yeah.
we got some people. But yeah, I guess we're gonna start in like less than a minute. So,
Yep.
huzzah!
Right. So let me see here. I got the thingy.
Blah, blah, blah. Banter.
Nah, that's not enough.
Blah, blah, blah.
I just want to see if you put the great. Oh no, okay, it's not up yet. I'm excited.
The banter bumper is not always the fun, because it's just I love the but the banter one is not the best.
Blah,
It's
blah,
okay.
blah.
We just need a bunch of canny adventurers to save the Noman need so that we can bring her back. I'm sure that's what everybody wants, right?
Yeah, no, we're never doing that again.
No,
No, we're never doing that again.
we're never letting Ryan use an obnoxious voice on air ever again.
No, he can totally do obnoxious voices on the air again. It's just that one's dead. I mean, like maybe this isn't me deciding things. It's just I think we just universally agree that that's not anything that makes our audience cringe is a bad thing
idea.
for ratings.
I mean, that's true.
Like we're pretty casual about things, but we really do care about ratings a little bit because that is the measurement of our success as a show.
We care about them enough to not bring back the Noman need, apparently.
Yes. All right. Okay, it is time to actually start this show. So give me a moment of silence so I know where to edit from.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you ready? Welcome to the Private Sanctuary Podcast. I'm Alexander Agunas, the Everyman Gamer, and tonight I'm joined by No Direction's very own tech master and technomancer, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
Hey, Alex. Good to be back on.
It's great to have you back. And what a episode we have you on for. We have you on for the ultimate in our class feature line, which is a segment where we talk about Pathfinder's basic and core classes. And tonight we are finally wrapping up the advanced class guide after, gosh, Anthony and I have literally been doing this for as long as we've been co-hosts. So you are going to get a front row seat, Param, as you and I mean, I guess you're a front row seat because like you're there. It's kind of like passenger in the co-pilot chair, but we're totally going to be finishing it up so then we can start talking about the occult classes because like at this point, to kind of prelude with the shaman, like this, to me, this is kind of like a speed bump onto the road to like the occult classes. I don't know how you feel about the shaman, Param.
I feel very neutral about the shaman. I haven't really, again, this is another class I haven't looked at since we did the big review of the book because none of my players play shaman. I don't see a lot of shaman talked about on the forums or online. So I'm curious, what is the pull of the shaman and why don't I see a lot of them?
That's a very good question. And I don't know if I'll be able to answer that because I think it's like a preference thing, but I can tell you why I'm not super into it. And, maybe it'll resonate with some of our live audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's
If
going to
you've
be
got
great.
strong opinions about the shaman, let us know.
Right, because if you don't have strong opinions about them, then you might be sorely disappointed about how neutral Param and I are. And, it's actually really funny, Param, because I asked around pretty much everybody on the network about what their thoughts are on the shaman, and, like, pretty much everyone was neutral. Ryan was like, I don't play full casters. And James is like, it's really cool for, like, 3 or 4 builds. Like, James was the most positive. Anthony was like, eh. And Monica was like, there's a shaman class? And I was like, yes, Monica.
Monica!
Listen, so I don't want to make it sound like Monica doesn't know her stuff, because she does. But, like,
Nobody
it's
talks
just
about this class.
it's not a very impactful class, which is sad because, on the flip side, it has one of my favorite iconics associated with it. Chandra, the iconic shaman, is awesome.
Yes. Man, she made such a huge splash when she was debuted for lots of reasons, but most notably because of diversity. She was the first trans Pathfinder character, or at least the openly trans iconics.
Yep. She also represents a character of a religious faith who is well known for having trans people in it, and it's to a point where, like, I'm trying to decide how to best describe Riventhune. It's like, it's almost like a spiritual honor and, like, a symbol of excellence, which is, I think it's really important for diversity reasons. You have to have, all right, so you don't have to have it, but having it is important for representation. I would say it's vital and crucial for a company that wants to have strong representation. And not only that, but, like, my favorite thing about Shardra is that she's a dwarf, which is traditionally a very, like, lawful, traditional, they're kind of played as being the strict clan hierarchies. So, like, it sends a very clear message that in Golarion, if these guys can, then you can too. It's the same with the trans paladin they have in Rise of the Rune Lord.
Right.
But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, and the fact that the very first LGBT character in Pathfinder was in the first issue, and it was a paladin intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But we have, this is not the diversity episode. We have diversity episodes. We have talked with many of the designers, many of the writers about all of these issues. Go check it out on their back issue archives if that's if that's an issue you want to learn more about. Today we're getting crunchy about the shaman. So what is the shaman sales pitch?
Well, the shaman is a hybrid class, like all the classes in the advanced class guide, which means it takes 2 concepts and it meshes them together to form a new class idea. And so for the shaman, those 8 classes are the oracle and the witch. And before we get into the mechanics too much, this is a class that falls into the same category as, like, the Scald, where the base elements of the classes that are the parents to this hybrid class are very, very clear. Like, this isn't a class where everything is mixed in nicely and uniform, where, like, you're playing a hybrid, but it feels like its own unique thing. Like, this very much borrows heavily from its parents, and there isn't a whole lot that's unique to the shaman. There are a few mechanics. One of them is major, but for the most part, this is Witch Oracle. Oh, hey, look at that. We have a bunch of really cool people in chat. Do I spy a Liz Quartz?
Mm-hmm.
It might be, maybe. I'm excited. We also have Rick, I think his name is Mori, right? That's your last name, Rick? And Yasumoto. So I'm happy we've had so many people who come on at, like, literally the last minute. Yeah. You guys are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so let's see. So you said Witch Oracle, so it's a 9th level spellcaster?
It is.
Yes,
and it's
full
prepared.
Caster. And it's
yes,
prepared.
It is 8th.
Which, okay, so I would almost assume that it would have been, that the fact that it's prepared is interesting. Okay, so where does it pull its spell list from? Does it have its own? Does it use the Witch? Does it use the Oracle?
So that is a really complicated question, and I'd like to give you the audience a history on where this class's spell list came from because it's super interesting. So for the majority of the classes in the advanced class guide, when their original playtest first came out, they all pretty much just borrowed their spell list from other classes in the same way that sorcerer or wizard use the same list and combine them together. The shaman was like that too originally, where it just used the druid spell list, and that really confused people because it's a witch oracle hybrid that used the druid spell list class.
But I can
And
see that. It makes sense.
yeah,
It makes
so
sense.
but so like when you are taking this class and like you're looking at it from what shaman means in terms of like what you picture as the iconic shaman, I think that it's pretty safe to say that like druidy things really stick out in your head more than like oracle things or witch things. And so that's why it had this list. But then people started going through and they're like, well, shamans are these really religious characters. They're like tribal leaders. Why exactly don't they have things like bless? Why don't they have all of these like divine prayer type spells? Why don't they have this and that? And so then a whole bunch of ideas started coming out where it was like, okay, well, maybe we should, let them pick these spells from the list, or maybe these specific spells are added as a class feature. And then literally like in the 9th hour of the final round of the playtest, the decision was made, you know what, like we really don't want to give this class its own spell list because it's just another thing to keep track of, but it really needs it. So the shamans actually have their own unique spell list that is a hybrid of the witch spell list, the druid spell list, and the cleric spell list.
Wow. I mean,
It is a very strong spell list. It's probably second only to the wizard itself.
right. And I can understand why they are hesitant about doing this, because every time they add a unique spell list, it makes that line of on the spell stat block that much longer. And as somebody
Definitely.
has a history of trying to squeeze the spell stat blocks on tiny little spaces to make the cards, that every time a new set of classes was released, I was like, no.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of really weird ways they got around this, though. There are a bunch of races that have as a favorite class bonus that they can actually steal spells from the cleric spell list that aren't on the shaman list and add them. I think there might be a race that could do the same with druids, and I wouldn't be surprised if changelings could do it with witches, where it's like, here, let me take your spells and put them on my thing. Bard Wannabe wants to point out that when the shaman first came out, it did not have Summon Nature's Ally, which really feels like something it should have. That's another great example of a spell that, why isn't this on this list? So again, ultimately a new spell list was made specifically for the shaman. But like once you get past the spell list, this class really starts showing its oracle and witch heritage. Looking at it as the vital statistics, as Anthony and I like to call it, the shaman is a D8 hit die class, which means it has a medium base attack bonus. Mm-hmm. It has no alignment restrictions. You can be whatever you want, go wild. It has a decent list of class skills. It's got craft, diplomacy, fly, handle animal, heal, knowledge nature, knowledge planes, knowledge religion, profession, ride, spellcraft, survival, and it has an impressive 4 skill ranks per level.
This sounds all good. This is exactly what this should be.
It's actually worth noting that, unless I'm mistaken, and somebody in the audience can correct me if I am, I'm pretty sure this is the only prepared spellcasting class that is that has the 4 skill ranks per level. I'm pretty sure Witch has 2 as well. And so ultimately, like, this is like, whoa, you get like this awesome spell list and you get 4 ranks, and like that list of class skills is not something to scoff at. It's not like the most insane list of class skills ever. It doesn't have perception, but it's good. It's strong.
Well, you feel a vital role with that particular skill list. Is you can double as the ranger, as in you're the nature I can track and know about the wilderness and nature, which is important for the shaman. So like that's a vital role in any group. Is, well, we need to go to the next location. Who can roll the track roll to get us there without wasting time?
I have a funny story about that. Before I tell that story, though, Lost Soul 34 wants to point out that Oracle has 4+, and you are right. So that probably comes from that parent class, which makes a lot more sense. Thank you. So one funny thing that happened to me once is I was in a group for Elven Entanglement where we had to we were a really good party. We had 2 wizards, we had a cleric, we had a bard, we had a mesmerist, we had a blood rager, really strong, really competent. But that whole adventure takes you like through a nature trek, and none of us had survival. So I had the best wisdom as the cleric. So my job was to pray to the Dawnflower that we would get through this demon blighted Tanglebriar. And lo, the Dawnflower has showed us the path to smite all of the demons.
Yes. So this is when everybody learns the aid another rolls.
That's exactly what happened. I had like a +4 from my stats. Everybody aided me. The Dawnflower graced me with 16s and 17s on my rolls. We did good.
You cast guidance?
I did.
Yes, yes. See. All the rolled cheese. Get all of the rolling cheese.
We needed it, and like that was my flavor text. Every time I rolled and cast guidance on myself, I called out to the Dawnflower to take us through, and it worked. It was pretty great. But enough about me and my characters, because guys didn't ask for that. Let's go on to some of the class features. We already talked about the spells for that shaman get, so I think this is a good time to talk about the meat and potatoes of the class, which is the spirit mechanic. So essentially, shamans fill this role where they commune with spirits that are all around them. These can be like literal, like ghosts or whatever, or they can be just abstractions of forces of nature or religion. The rules don't actually specify, so you can pretty much do whatever you want. And the idea is that at first level, you pick like a primary patron spirit that you get your powers from. And your patron spirit gives you a list of hexes, just like a witch, that you can pick from, in addition to a list of standard shaman hexes. Your spirit also gives you a small list of special spells that you can cast using an ability called Spirit Magic. It basically works like the cleric's ability to prepare domain spells in a nutshell. And it also modifies your familiar in a cool way.
How does it modify your familiar?
So, like, if you worship the Earth Spirit, your familiar has there's like a little flavor bar that says your familiar gets like rocky skin and it becomes stout and tough. It gains a +1 damage reduction that's overcome by adamantium or something little and cool and flavorful like that. Some of them are like, this might come up. That's cool. Like, I mean, are you really going to stick your familiar into a fight? Is that DR1 really going to happen? Probably not. Not unless you go like nature spirit. But some of them are like, your familiar gets fast healing. It's like, oh, well, then couldn't I just like, use unwilling shield on my familiar and then we split the damage and then it'll just heal it? Yeah. So some of them are really good.
But,
some of them are not.
Remember we talked about it in their last episode, the social contract. Make sure before you make your familiar a combatant that you realize that you're making it a fair game.
Oh, definitely. That's like the second that you tell your GM that your familiar can use magic device. All of a sudden, then it's like, oh, you just cast a magic missile at my colossal centipede, did you? Well, let me show you what my colossal centipede can do to your little familiar. The answer is exactly what you expect.
Oh my gosh. I use, this is, I wished where is it? I wanted to actually grab a prop that I have handy for this thing. Is my character's familiar rabbit. I occasionally use the touch spells to have him cast enhanced shocking grasp on things.
Do you chuck it at the GM?
And so I have a when I was commissioning Mike Richards to make chainmail dice bags, he put like designs in them, and I gave one to my brother as a birthday gift, and it was the Andoran crest because his Pathfinder Society character is an Andoran character. It looks fantastic. So when it was time to order me one, I was like, I want you. So I sent him a design file that I drew, which was basically the outline of a rabbit and lightning bolts shooting off of it, and it's a chainmail dice bag of the bunny casting shocking grasp.
Nice. I love it.
But, oh goodness. Oh, it says that we have me at much lower volume than Alex. I can't boost me, so I'm nuking Alex, guys.
No.
All right, I lowered Alex. You'll have to turn the volume up on your end, guys. I'm maxed out at the moment without going into configuration settings. Okay, so the familiars are cool looking. You can see one on the iconic art. She has a stone lizard.
Yeah, she's pretty great.
Yeah.
I don't know if that familiar has a name. It should be called Rocky, though. I like the idea that like dwarves just have really literal names for their pets, kind of like Biter for Harsk.
Mm. Man, I wish they did more with dwarves. I know that they are going to, and in the last conversations we've had with some of the design team was there was going to be some more dwarf stuff. But man,
Well, yeah,
I want to see Paizo's take on dwarf because they've done so good with the other races, and dwarf has just been painfully ignored for almost a decade now.
well, I mean, like you heard about Iron Fang, the Iron Fang invasion, right?
Mhm.
The new next AP that's coming out, just to totally date the show for all future listeners. Yeah, like that one's supposed to have dwarves in it, like all the dwarves, the best dwarves.
Dwarves! I like
All right.
dwarves. I know people don't, but
Do you know what people do totally like though?
What?
People like getting an extra spell slot at every spell level. From
I absolutely
the
love
Spirit
getting an
feature.
extra spell slot.
The best part is like the best way to think about the Spirit Magic class feature, which is the Shaman's free domain spell slot, is that every spirit has like a list of special goodie spells just for the Shaman,
Mhm.
and like that free domain slot is for those Spirit Magic spells. And I'm pretty sure that unlike the Cleric, you can actually meta magic those if you want to, which is
Okay.
pretty neat. So, like, if you want to use a higher level spell slot for a lower level Spirit Magic spell, you totally can.
So this works more like the wizard school slot.
It looks like Liz Courts wants to remind us that Chardra's familiar's name is Kolo.
That's a good
That's
name.
way better. That's a really good name. I'm almost disappointed that I doubted her ability to give her familiar a good name.
Of course, it has a name.
No, not a name, a good name.
Oh,
But I'm also really bitter because one year when Ryan and I did the Paizo trivia, one of the trivia question was, "What is the name of Harsk's animal companion?" And we thought it was Scratcher,
oh,
and it was Biter. Whoops. All right. So, beside the spirit magic, the shaman spirits themselves do have cool powers, and the names are literally taken from the witch, and that would be hexes. I think one of the things that when I talk to players about the shaman class that they say they don't like about it is that unlike the witch who gets their very first hex at first level, the shaman has to wait until second level to get a hex. So there is no hex at first level. It can be really difficult to play the shaman because of it. It's actually one of the problems that PFS players tell me they have with the iconic shaman pregen, where she doesn't have any cool powers that she can do, and she's got like fewer spells than everybody else, and she's really bad with weapons.
that's not a good combination.
Listen though, like I say that, and then at level 7, she just turns into like the goddess of everything. Like she gets really strong later because her spirit is the lore spirit. And one of the things I touched on slightly but didn't really go into a whole lot is the fact that in addition to getting hexes, shaman have a special power per spirit that they 100% get as they level up. They're called the just the spirit abilities. So like the life spirit ability is you get channel energy.
That's a great one.
It's a great one. I mean, you get it a lot later than what a cleric would get it, but who cares? It's channel energy. And so the powers vary, but all of them are generally useful. So usually you get these 3 stages of really cool powers as you level up, and then you pick which hexes you want as you go. Some, like I mentioned, like each spirit has its own unique list of usually 3 to 4 hexes, and then the class itself has a general list. They range from things that are basically witch hexes, like the fortune hex, the cackle ability. They get a fetish that lets them take craft wondrous item as a bonus feat, but they also have a bunch of really cool, unique ones like charm, which is basically the hex version of charm person, and On top of that, they also get Shapeshift, which is basically a hex that starts out working like Ultra Self when you first take it, and it slowly upgrades to encapsulate all of the beast form spells. So by the end, you're using this minutes per level shapeshifting ability. It's not as long lasting as the druids, but since it can be used in increments rather than in one big use, it's arguably more versatile.
And, yeah, because
Just
most combats don't last the full minute.
Yeah, exactly. Bard Wannabe wants to point out that with spirit magic spells are spontaneously cast, so
Oh,
they are not prepared.
man, that's
So you
such
can
a weird thing.
yes, so you can use the higher level spell slot for the lower level spell whenever you need it.
Man, so it has hybrid spell casting as well as being a hybrid class.
It
That's
does.
just weird.
It has hybrid spellcasting in the exact opposite way of the Arcanist, where the Arcanist has to prepare what spells he knows for the day and then can spontaneously cast them. This person prepares their spells like normally, but has a small list that they can also spontaneously cast. So, like if the Arcanist has them meshed in and mixed together, the Shaman has both side by side. They're just way better at one than the other
Okay.
because they have way more prepared than spontaneous. All right. So with that, that's the basics of the class. You have a spirit. You get special abilities as you level up, and you pick hexes.
Well, so
So,
far this sounds like the right rules and the right flavor for what this class needs to be.
but now this is where it gets complicated
Okay.
because in addition to having your standard spirit, starting at 6th level, you get to pick what's called a wandering spirit.
Ooh.
So basically, each day when you prepare your spells, you open yourself out to the spirits around you, and you let one random spirit of any other shaman spirit you want into your body. It can't be the one you already have. And when you do that, you temporarily gain that wandering spirit powers, and you gain them at a slower progression. So, like at 6th level, you gain the 1st level spirit, and then later you'd get the 2nd, and later you'd get the 3rd. But eventually, you'll have all of the powers of both spirits, and you get special hexes that you can only take using the wandering spirits hexes.
Okay.
So you have a small list of hexes that changes from day to day.
Yeah. Now the shaman gets to choose which spirit. It's not a random roll, right?
No, it's 100% their choice.
Okay, so very versatile. It also fits in the flavor because, I mean, this isn't a shaman, but one of my favorite novels to read right now is the Iron Druid Chronicles, and the whole concept of reaching down to an elemental spirit and borrowing its power is really prevalent in a lot of the class fantasy that we're going to be dealing with here.
Precisely. And so in every way, the wandering hexes function like standard hexes. And so basically you get this ability to pull hexes from different places and combine things in weird new ways. And if you don't like it, that's okay, because the next day you can just pick a different wandering spirit. That means you can either keep one setup you really like, or you can switch things out and pick new things depending on the day's challenges where you think you're going to be. Like if you really like the Flame Spirit because it's got Fireball and a bunch of cool fire spells, and you want to use the Flame Spirit one day, but then, hey, I'm going to go fight the Red Dragon tomorrow, maybe that's not going to be helpful. You have the choice to switch it out.
Okay, so it's a prepared divine spellcaster with. It sounds like the most versatile divine spellcaster.
It is absolutely the most versatile divine spellcaster. I mean, honestly, it's probably one of the most versatile classes, period. Because also, when you invite your wandering spirit into your body, you also, if I'm not mistaken, you get to use that spirit's list of spirit magic spells too. So now you have 2 lists of spells that you can spontaneously cast from with your 1 slot per spell level.
Handy.
So it is a strong, very versatile build, and it can do a lot of things. A very popular one that I usually see is people like taking lore and then going into life and mixing those abilities together. People also seem to like grabbing battle and like death and stuff and pulling them together. Like the combinations that you can pull off with this class are it's very, very impressive. I would say that I don't think there's any other class that can change like this aside from the medium itself.
I'm having a hard time thinking of another one this versatile. Like not able to swap out whole hosts of abilities. Not like that. Now, So what kind of roles, like now that we understand the crunch of the class, what kind of roles does the shaman fulfill in the party? Like what kind of builds can be made?
So I think it's worth pointing out that your primary role is probably going to be based on what you pick as your first level spirit. That's the thing that's not changing about your build. And from that, the answer is like there are spirits for everything. The life spirit makes you a healer that is pretty close to being on par with the life oracle, which is the best healer in the
Yeah.
game.
Wow.
Yeah, it's strong. The bones makes you about as good as a necromancer wizard at raising the dead. Like there are really strong spirits. Battle gives you like heavy armor. You can walk in and beat face if you want to. Flame is really good at AOE. The one thing you might be noticing while I'm reading these off is that the spirit names correlate to uh, Oracle mysteries almost exactly like the mysteries in the Advanced Player's Guide. Um, Going back to the list, Heavens is ridiculous at crowd control. I have sat at a table with a Heavens shaman, and the things they can do with color spray are disgusting.
It's already a broke spell, so okay.
It makes it even stronger. Just you'll have to take my word for it. Lore is probably the safest one. In canon, it is the iconic spirit choice, and also it has the wonderful ability where, as a hex, they're just like, hey, you know, it would be really fun if I just add spells from the sorcerer wizard spell list to my spells known.
Oh, so pulling from having the second strongest spell list and getting to pull spells from the strongest spell list.
Yup. Yup. And they're treated as divine instead of arcane. And every time you gain a level after taking the hex, you can choose to swap an old spell with a new spell. So you can always have a wonderful array of destruction at your fingertips. I find that lore is equally popular as both a primary and a wandering, because if you wander it, you can choose which spells you get every day and have basically be a wizard because you just have the best wizard spells for every situation.
Yeah.
So like lore is a really strong pick no matter what your list is. I mean, hey, are you really sad that you're a fighting oracle and you don't have access to haste? Lore. Are you really sad that you're a blasty oracle and you don't have access to delayed fireball? Lore. You can just keep going on this like forever. I'm not going to go anymore, but that's basically what it does. Nature is best described as, wouldn't it be great if I took my familiar and made it into an animal companion?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
always great.
that's its 10th level ability. It has all the stats of an animal companion, but the intelligence of a familiar.
That from experience of when that has been mixed before, that can become very broken.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strong. That's why it's a 10th level ability. The other hexes it gets tend to be a little bit more down low as a result. But man, oh man, are you a happy camper when you have a super smart animal companion? It's like having an Eidolon with no evolutions, but it's a raptor or whatever you want.
And you don't have to worry about teaching it tricks.
I mean, and like the best part is like if Chandra decides, you know what, Kolo, you would look really good as a raptor today. She can just wandering let that spirit in, and all of a sudden she gets that 10th level ability that turns her familiar into an animal companion, and that little itty bitty lizard morphs into a warehouse raptor bent on eating everybody.
Well, I mean, everybody wants to grow up.
I mean, yeah, and there's no better way to do it than being a familiar who turns into a raptor. Or, I mean, Kolo could be an elephant.
So this sounds almost like cleric in that it can feel almost every role going. In fact, more so than cleric, because cleric has a
Yes.
difficult time being a blaster, and this looks like it can be a blaster.
Well, yes and no. You have to take the right combination of spirits in order to get the class to do anything you want. And thus far, we haven't really talked about the one balancing factor of this class.
Okay.
And that's that looking at it from a hard list of numbers, its spell progression pretty much mirrors that of the witch, which means looking at it from a glance, it's pretty close to the clerics. I think it's a little bit slower because I'm pretty sure clerics go up to 5s in some. But if it doesn't, then it's
No,
good.
clerics
No,
cap off at 4+1.
yeah, yeah. Also, they only have one good save. They get will, and that's it. So if that matters to you.
I mean, it's the one they should have.
Hmm. And I mean, if you're building a shaman who's designed to go into a brawl, you're probably going to have a good con and a reflex anyway. So whatever. Bard Wannabe wants to point out that Nature Familiar doesn't become an animal companion until 16th level. I jumped the gun. It's the second. It's the greater ability, not the standard ability. Man, oh man, though. I can just keep dreaming of that day.
All right, so we've talked about the base class. What are the archetypes?
A lot.
Okay.
There's a lot. The shaman is not cursed with poor archetype selection like some full spellcasters are. Part of that is the reason that they have a lot of swappables, like things like hexes and stuff. One of my favorites is in the advanced class guide. It's called the Animist. You basically trade out a lot of hexes for the ability to use diplomacy to make negative conditions go away. You literally can, yeah. So basically, it comes from the idea of animism, wherein every object, every creature, every ailment, every physical impairment on a person's or creature's body, all of those things have spirits. And the animist can talk to them. And so if an animist who is sufficiently good at diplomacy can actually convince a broken arm to go away.
Okay, that's
It's
weird.
it's
I'll
super
go with it because
it is super cool. I love it. It's so great. It, like I said, it loses a lot to become basically the wound whisperer. But man, oh man, is it worth it because it is so cool. Another one that I really like is called the Unsworn Shaman. It's a shaman that basically does not have a familiar. The shamans use the familiar spellcasting mechanic like a witch, meaning they store their spells inside their familiar. But instead of having a familiar, they have the ability to just kind of like get lesser spirits. So like losing the familiar hurts your spirit abilities, but hey, if you don't want to worry about having a familiar, you don't have to. Honestly, I think it's cool and flavorful, but in most scenarios, having a familiar is better than not having a familiar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the familiar's the stronger of the arcane bonds too, for less obvious reasons. So familiars are great.
Yes. A really hilarious archetype that they have is called the Witch Doctor. The thing that makes the Witch Doctor so funny is that at 4th level, the Witch Doctor gets channel energy, which is something they can also get as a spirit ability. And this ability doesn't stop them from taking the life spirit. So you can have 2 pools of channel energy with separate uses that scale with your shaman level.
Interesting. Okay, so you can super heal, but that's not the archetype I expected to be the healer.
Yeah, but they also get the ability to counter curses, which is pretty cool. And they can counter even witches' hexes, where they're like, aha, no, I dispel you. If you want to be a shaman who, instead of bartering with spirits, they're possessed by them, there's the possessed shaman. I think it's neat. It's not necessarily my favorite, but I like that it exists. Generally speaking, shaman doesn't really get a whole lot of archetype support. There have been a couple in occult adventures. I think there's one in horror adventures, and a couple in a few different player companions and campaign settings. But like many 9th level spellcasting classes, it's hard to make archetypes for them just because they're already so good. What do you do?
Yeah, it's also very versatile. Like a lot of options are already built into the class, so it's like why? This is why a lot.
Yeah.
This is why like wizard and sorcerer didn't get archetypes until much later, and not very many, because the class themselves has transformation built into the mechanic.
Right, definitely. Like, especially a spontaneous class, but also prepared ones too. You're so defined by the choices and spells that you make. It's like to the point where like, do swapping out these abilities really matter that much? Right. Even then, I think wizard is easier to do the swappables with because schools aren't as they're a little bit less packaged than bloodlines. Like it always feels weird to get rid of bloodline things, but for like wizard, it's like, oh, I went to this school. It's like necromancy but with a gun. So like, Yeah, I think flavor has a lot to do with it too, but the in terms of how they're set up also is a big factor.
Oh, now I'm
Um,
imagining a necromancer gunslinger.
you can do it. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. You could just sit there and have the skeletons reload your gun for you. Listen, reloading hands is a great spell, but man, oh man, all you got to do is get a couple hundred gold worth of onyx, and boom, they'll do it. They'll reloading hands for you.
Just get like several guns, and then like the skeletons just passing muskets to you. You're passing them back.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, like you're gonna have to wait a long time because those skeletons are too dumb to take rapid reload, but it'd be really funny. So, what about you? Do you have any thoughts or experiences with the shaman
I
class?
have no experiences because, like I said, none of my players, none of my PFS players, none of my home game players have ever really looked at this class strongly. I
Yeah,
like the class concept. It's definitely one I'd consider making a PFS character for, especially now that I see how versatile and awesome this is. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like it a lot, but I haven't gotten any hands on with it.
yeah. So like for me, it is a really cool class, but it's also something that like I haven't been able to say this. Yeah, this is what I want to do with this. This is how I want to play this character. I feel like if I did, I would want to go like nature spirit and maybe like battle as the wandering spirit, and then just take the shapeshift text and do shapeshift shenanigans. But that even feels kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of advantages. It's divine, so it can wear armor.
Yeah.
It's got a good base attack bonus, not a good. It has the medium base attack bonus, the medium hit dice, a good skill selection, 9 levels of spellcasting, a great spell list, able to pull from other spell lists. I do not see why this is not one of the more popular choices, other than probably because it came out so late in the lifespan of classes.
I I honestly don't know myself. At least where I play PFS, we're definitely a more martial focused, and I think there's more information on how to play wizard or cleric because they're classic.
Hmm.
That shaman might seem a little scary to some people, but it's a good class. I think that if you're looking for a character who can do a lot and is fair and balanced about it, like the shaman is a ninth level caster with probably the best class flexibility in the game. I think Bard Wannabe is right. Bard Wannabe says that the spell list looks weak to a lot of people. And you know what? Like, at a glance, the list does look really weak, but you can supplement it with so many spells that are like, and it's spontaneous. So if you really just want to cast Shield twice per day instead of your second level spell, that's fine. Like, and also, like, you go lore, and all of a sudden, like, who cares what the shaman spell list says? You get whatever you want from the sorcerer wizard spell list.
All right.
I know, yeah. So, generally speaking, it's like for me, my reaction is like it's a lukewarm. Like it's a perfectly serviceable class. I admit that it doesn't really excite me, but I think the reason is that it's designed to be such of a swappable class and build your own class, even on a day-to-day experience, that it can be really hard to look at it and say, yeah, this is what this class does. Like, this isn't a class that holds your hand and tells you how to play it.
I like
What
it.
do you think?
I think I'm gonna give this thing more because the flavor is so strong and the
Mhm.
options are so strong. I think that I'll just give it another shot. I mean, I think I do have to build a PFS character soon, so this is really strong in the running for what my next one will be. And because
My
especially since it
next,
seems like it's almost a divine wizard more so than it is because it's got prepared spells. You have to learn it to your lizard or whatever your familiar is. I mean, it plays a lot like a wizard. It can pull from the wizard list and has a lot of versatility options, which means if you play it like a wizard, you'll be successful.
probably. It looks like Lost Souls says a problem with the shaman and its flexibility is that it is tough to be super OP for the inevitable arms race that happens among super specialized character types. That's a pretty insightful statement. I think that if you're looking to just be general and have answers to every situation, though, the shaman will work well. We have a shaman in our Reign of Winter game. I always forget that he's a shaman, even though that 10 of his 11 class levels are in shaman, and that's because his one level is in vitalist, and like that's his cheesy tactic. But he's life bones.
Okay.
Yeah. He says that he likes playing with the forces of life and death. He is a dwarf, a really creepy, gross dwarf.
Okay.
And pretty much all of pretty much all of his spells are based on either some combination of healing or messing with people's necrotic built powers.
And I have a creepy dwarf in my Reign of Winter game too. He's a vermin hunter.
Wow, creepy dwarfs for the win.
Yep, yep.
I wonder if anybody in chat has seen creepy dwarfs before. Maybe that's why Paizo doesn't want to do anything with it,
Because
with
all the dwarves
dwarves.
are creepy. No, dwarves
all,
aren't
the,
creepy.
all the dwarves except for Harsk and Chandra are creepy.
Oh, Harsk is a weird dwarf anyway. He's a ranger.
I mean, he's only weird because he drinks tea and therefore breaks all stereotypes that people have about dwarves.
All right. Well, I think
Discord says yes.
more dwarf
Oh, that's
love,
funny.
please. Yes. All right. So I think that's it.
I think that might be it too. So in the meantime, did you want? I mean, we can sign off, or we could do a little bit of banter.
Ooh, we know we haven't geeked out about a Reign of Winter game in a little bit.
It's been at least 2 months.
Yes.
What do you guys in chat think? Would you like to hear us geek out about Reign of Winter for a little bit? I'm gonna wait and see.
There's like a 2-minute delay. All right. So where are you at your Reign of Winter game right now? What book?
Is this going to be a spoiler conversation?
Oh yeah, we have to be very careful. But what book are you in? That's the
so literally half of the people are now saying yes, please talk about it. So okay.
If you're worried about Reign of Winter spoilers, this is where you should tune out of the show. We will try to go light on them, but
so it seems like
get yelled at.
It seems like everybody in chat is DMing it, and it says someone says your volume might be a little low.
Again?
I don't know. So all right. So some people are saying they're in book 4. Some people are saying they're in book 1. My group is now officially in book 4, which is called The Frozen Stars. I really like this book. It is so much better than book 3. Like book 3 as a player is just oppressive. Like how far are you guys in book 3? I know that you're around book 3, right?
They have just stepped into book 3's dungeon. And they haven't figured out the trick to book 3's dungeon yet.
Oh, but then they don't know. They don't know about how oppressive that dungeon is. I'm assuming you've read all of the encounters.
Mm-hmm.
So you understand what happens to them inevitably as they go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that really long dungeon, Lost Souls.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, like, when you go through Artrosa, it's basically a meat grinder because perfectly spaced out between places, you have a debuff encounter with permanent or long-lasting debuffs, followed by heavy-hitting bruisers, followed by more debuffs, followed by more bruisers. Like, literally, our characters were inside of Artrosa for a month. Like,
good God!
Literally, in game, we were inside for a month. Like, the only reason we didn't get in trouble with the guardians in front of the doors, if you know what I mean, like it's because we kept throwing them sacrifices. Whenever we killed something, we would just throw them at their roots, and they let us chill there. It was really sad for my character because I'm neutral good, but also these are horrible, chaotic, evil witches, and it was easier to like have a tree guardian than worry about what happens to the dead of these horrible monsters.
This is not a place I would want to camp in. I mean,
no.
Oh.
We had 2 deaths in Artrosa.
Oh, good.
One of them was Greta, the NPC. She died, and we've reincarnated her. She came back as a nymph.
We're only 1 character down right now, but it happened before Atrocia, and they took. Do you know the Urdiza, the Centaur NPC?
Yeah.
So I let them rebuild that character, and that just became the new character. So, like the Centaur NPC happened, I gave them the background sheet, and now she's joined the party. But instead of being forced to play the character as is, I let them rebuild the character completely from scratch.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, and she ended up building it as a. She ended up being built as a Oh my goodness, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's a archer. Oh man, I'm having the complete. It's a archer. Never mind. Sorry, it's a weird. Oh, the divine champion.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
Um,
so archer clericy goodness.
Greta is pretty much our go-to in there. Like whenever somebody is out, like we just use Greta to like fill in for that person. Um, it's a little bit tough now. She was really awesome when she was a winter wolf, but now that she's a nymph, she's a little bit less powerful.
Mm. Yeah, they just passed by Greta. Like they had the encounter, goodbye, and then she just stayed there.
So my problem was is that I was wearing the pelt when we met her.
Oh.
So she asked me to go out to dinner with her, and so there was a whole side quest where I took her out to dinner and we spent the night because I'm also the charismatic bard,
Mm-hmm.
and up to that point there was a running joke where like I always found weird accidental ways to just seduce the monsters, not even like the other like human NPCs, but like I hit a troll with charm person and that really backfired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Greta came along, and there was a lot of angst because my character isn't always truthful. It was fun though. But so no, what I was saying before, going on to book 4, which is Frozen Stars. I love book 4. Like it is fascinating to me to have this book that looks at like an area in the Pathfinder role playing game that you wouldn't normally like see ever. And where we're at now involves us fighting a really big, scary dragon. So I'm really excited. Like, oh my gosh. Like, so for one thing, fighting big, scary dragons is cool.
Yes.
And for my character is the party accountant. I have like a plus 15 in appraise. And because like when I got the job of being loot treasurer and the party, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to put ranks in this in character so that in character I'm loot treasurer too. And like everyone else is like, oh man, we got to fight this dragon. It's super serious. And then like my bard is like, well, yeah, we have to fight this evil dragon, and that's bad. But like he's also in charge of an army, and he's a dragon, which means he has a horde. Let me get out my accountant visor, my abacus.
We have we I wish we had the dedicated accountant. What we have is our hoots list. So called
That's silly.
because the first person to have the loot list wrote so badly that we had a hard time describing it, and there was no way on earth that was an L. So when I created it, I got this leather book, and I customed up a cover for it with like the goblin with all the treasure on the front of it, and like I put my Photoshop work to use, okay? And then so we have this nice thick leather 3-ring binder that's sole purpose is to be filled with inventory tracking sheets for the loot list. And on the cover it says Hoot List. And my players avoid this thing like the plague. And the last time,
Why?
because everybody hates being the Hoot List guy, they pass it. Basically, what happens is that I start the sessions. We do the last time in Reign of Winter thing where they earn their hero points, and then everybody goes not it, not it, not it.
That's funny. So ready. Look at this. This is my loot list. Look at this. I don't know if you guys can see it. If you're listening, I'm sorry. You're not going to get to see the glory.
Oh my gosh! You put where they come from. I love you.
Like so, like literally, we have this item, this ring. It's got to have like a caster level 30 or something, and we found it in book 1. And like I keep trying to identify, and I have a plus 21 in spellcraft now, and I still keep rolling low on identifying it. And so like it's like this ring.
10?
What was that?
Why don't you take 10 and use the identify spell?
I don't have identify. I'm a bard.
Okay, well just take 10.
I mean, I could. I probably should. It's kind of become the joke ring that's just going to sit in the loot bin forever. But the other reason I really like talking about my loot list and showing it off to everybody. So actually, before I go into that, Liz Court says Google Sheets with page references. I like that. However, at the same time, I am really bad at keeping digital inventory. So I don't know. I'm just, I guess, more of a pen and paper guy. So I acknowledge that Google Sheets would probably be a lot better for me. But like, I'm sorry.
I'm a web developer programmer that has online tools and does a podcast and loves video games, and I ban tech at my table.
Well, I mean, you're just cruel and unusual.
Yeah, they have. I have finally let people bring in iPad character sheets, but
Uh,
but I just don't like distraction. I do not like the moment when everybody, like the second anybody like gets distracted on a Facebook post or a game notification, just brings us down from what we're doing. So like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I ban tech. So that's why the Google Sheets wouldn't work for my table.
I understand. So the one thing I really like about Frozen Stars is that it's really refreshing after going through books 1, 2, and 3, because those books kind of push you down on like this really one set path. Like, this is what you're doing and this is where you have to go. And that road almost never goes to a place where you can sell things.
I
And
don't.
as the
I don't know, man, because in right before you get to Atrosia, there's a city you can sell things at with a decent
so
gold piece.
we didn't find out that that place existed until much later. Like,
Oh.
we ran into the NPC, and like she took us to her starting camp, and then from the starting camp she took us to Artrosa and
Oh,
never mentioned it.
the chieftain's supposed to tell you that city's there.
No, no, nobody told us that the city existed. So what ended up happening is that Greta died, and our GM decided that because of how Artrosa works, it's got this weird dimensional thing around it,
Mm-hmm.
that Greta's body randomly teleported to a random location within 5 miles of Artrosa. So we had to actually find her body, her near frozen to death body in the middle of this icy tundra.
Well,
And like,
completely to death, right?
almost to death. Like, literally, she had like 1 hit point left when we found her. Like, because you accrue negative temporary hit points. You accrue non-lethal damage from exposure to cold,
Okay.
and that can kill you. And so, like, literally, she had taken almost like 140. Like, it was really rough. And so, like, we had no idea that town existed. And then, like, we were down. Like, GM's like, oh well, while you're down there, you know that there's a city you guys could go to sell stuff, because I complained about hauling everything. And like, we looked at her and we were like, what? There was a city. There was a city, and we ran right to the city, and we just stayed there for like a week. We were like, oh my god, like, it might be horse people civilization, but it's civilization.
It's a human city.
Wait, it's human?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there's horse people there, but it's a human city.
Oh man, I must not remember that place very well. I
Well,
thought
either
it was.
that or your GM changed it. I mean, GMs can change the adventure. Like I'm just remembering how I'm running it. But yeah, because my players did the same thing, but it was before they hit atrocious. So they're like, we're about to hit the dungeon crawl. Yep, let's sell all the stuff, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna need this many remove curse scrolls. We're gonna need this many potions of this many potions. Like they went into full raid
Oh
prep
man,
mode.
you are so much better than us, man. We did no idea what we were walking into. Like, we just we walked into Goliath's clutches.
Oh man, they've got hex nails and they've got like, because at this point they're just assuming it's going to be witch crap, isn't it? Yeah, a lot of witch crap. Okay, we hate witch stuff, right? Yeah, and if it's not witch stuff, it's going to be fey. Okay, protection from evil for everyone.
I mean, and that's kind of what's nice about Frozen Stars, is because it completely changes the enemies that you're fighting.
Okay.
It goes from being like a lot of witches and like witchy, haggy monsters, and it switches it up completely to dragons. And you're like, "Wah!" Yeah. Oh, book 4 is awesome. Like, I love book 4. Also, the fact that there's a little bit more open roam a component to it. Like, before we went to the dungeon crawl of book 4, we hung out at the major trading city on the place where book 4 takes place. I'm being vague because it's a spoiler, because it's super cool.
Okay.
But there's a reason it's called the Frozen Stars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm winking enough.
Okay, enough. I mean, we've already spoiled the crap out of Arena Winter on previous No Directions, because there's a reason that Reign of Winter got so much press, and in order to go into that reason, you have to spoil one of the biggest surprises in it. And I've been keeping that knowledge from my players as if it was sacred testimony. I mean,
I mean, like, we all kind of went in knowing, honestly, but I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited. Like, to me, like, that experience is what you play Reign of Winter for, in my opinion. Like, the Baba Yaga stuff is awesome,
Yeah.
but like the novelty of the places it takes you, like the journey is more important than the destination, in my opinion.
Well, book one is probably one of the most fun I've had running an adventure of any. Like, I love it. Book one, I love more than all of Rise of the Rune Lords. I love more than book one of Wrath of Wrath of the Righteous, and I did not like how Wrath of the Righteous went, but book one was awesome.
Book one was a lot of fun. I've played book one, book two, and we got about halfway through book three before our group fell apart because our one friend moved to Singapore.
Yeah, book three is where it fell apart for us.
I mean, that's where the high powered mythic stuff starts to come.
And it wasn't the
turning
storyline. It was just between mass combat and mythic, the rule systems were bogging us. Well, I've talked about this at length, but the storylines were great. It's just mythic didn't work for us, and neither did the mass combat rules. I had to remove the mass combat rules because that really wasn't fun, because one of our players actually built their character to be a general and to be really good at mass combat, to the point that actually that character auto won every encounter without it even being like, if they could roll a 1 and the other army could roll a 20 and they'd still win.
That's kind of funny.
But it always bites when somebody builds something and then you have to take that away.
Yeah.
I hate that.
In our campaign, the mass combat was different for us because it was the one place we really couldn't use our mythic powers to be better at. And my brother, who is very much a kind of a more introverted person, really like found his footing and his job in the group because his character was really good at leading an army. So he kind of tried to rise to the challenge for his character. And so he took a lot more initiative than my brother normally does. And it was pretty neat. For those viewers and listeners who don't know, my brother is on the autism spectrum, so like I talk about it, and like for other people, it's like, oh yeah, stepping up and taking charge of that type of play is not a big deal. But like for my brother, it was a big deal. Like he was very kind of quiet and only really participated when it was time to roll dice and fight. And to that, he was like, boom, all in. And he was a lot more invested after that happened. Excuse me.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, we could geek out about this forever, but we've already gone on much longer than a private sanctuary usually goes on. Do we want to wrap this up?
Yeah, you should.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for being live and stuff. Thank you all for joining us. Let me do the typical thing where if you want to contact us, you can contact us at nodirectionpodcast.com. You can email us at nodirection@hotmail.com. Our Facebook No Direction page, which is facebook.com/nodirection. And other ways of getting in touch with us. Also, you can get in touch with Alex, me, anybody on the network. Also, if you haven't checked out our nodirectionpodcast.com website, go and do that. The blog content on there comes out every single day, and it is amazing work by some of the best writers. Some of my best writers in the industry, and lots of free content coming out every single day. It's amazing. All right, guys.
Before you go, I have one thing that I want to mention. So I hope none of you guys have turned off yet. The next episode that we do is probably something that we've gotten a lot of requests to do over the past, I don't know, man. When did my grad courses start? January? Let's say 4 months then.
Yeah, it's been about 6 months.
Yeah. So like this has been the number one thing that people have asked Anthony and I to do. And I have the script written. Like, I don't usually write the scripts. That's normally Anthony's thing. But I sat down and I wrote the script. Create Demiplane is coming back for our next episode.
Woohoo! Like, you get emailed, Ryan gets emailed, I get emailed. Everybody loves this Create Demiplane thing. So I'm glad that we're finally going to have some more of that on the network.
It was actually, we were going to go back tonight. What happened was Anthony uh, Anthony works at like a pharmaceutical company, and the East Coast got hit by a major snowstorm this past week, and Anthony was snowed out of work. And because of the time lost, his boss asked him to take up the lead on a new project. So work commitments essentially. So we are back. We're going to be doing it. It is completely written. Rick is asking, or no, Lost Souls is asking what Create Demiplane is. Basically, Anthony and I sat down and we wrote together a setting that like for use in like a role playing game, and the idea is that we go through the motions of how you actually world build. So our Create Demiplane takes place in a frozen steppe slash tundra that we have so far not named, and the next episode it's going to have a name. Like we have lists picked out. Anthony and I just need to decide which one to use from a list of like 4 or 5. So it's going to be named, and we're going to talk about political intrigue in the demiplane.
Excellent. I'm going to be glad when that hits up because, hey, like I said, we're getting bombed with emails and messages about it, so great.
Yes. So thanks for joining us for episode 301 of the Private Sanctuary podcast. If you have any questions, you can message us at our No Direction Facebook group, just like Param just said. And until next time, I'm Alexander Agunis.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
And you are welcome in our private sanctuary.